Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, 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 and happy Father's Day to all the fathers. It's time to begin, and we're going to start off our gathering with a song. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest musician, Zach Friedhoff. He is the troubadour of peace from Akron, Ohio. His music is an uplifting blend of folk and soul, immersed in love. He hopes his recordings and shows with his band Zach and the Bright Lights can be a catalyst to uplift mental health and community. He's a master at creating communities. You can find out more at his link, but he's also an accomplished artist, author, yogi, co-director of the Yoga Summit of Ohio, and co-creator and executive director of the Big Love Network. So you can find out more about him in the chat, but in the meantime, just sit back, relax, and enjoy his music.
What a beautiful honor to be here this morning. I'm planting pines higher than the midday sun. I'm planting light in the hearts of everyone. I won't see the fruit or the flower, but I hear the song, birds singing. I'm standing tall, tall as I can be, 'cause I wanna see the source of it all. I am where I am, on the blood in the backs of millions of women and men. We couldn't flower if they didn't plant seeds. We can't dance without the beat. There's a little voice inside I wanna believe. So listen to the heart that cries. No words are needed, no words are needed. Living with the heart in flight. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. So open your books, some things you can only find if you stop to look, or get yourself shook. Time is just passing, a breathing transaction. You're a picture in a picture book. I wanna see the end of the story, but I know that there's glory in every scene. We couldn't flower if they didn't plant seeds. We can't dance without the beat. There's a little voice inside learning to lead. So listen to the heart that cries. No words are needed, no words are needed. Living with the heart in flight. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. Listen to the heart that cries. No words are needed, no words are needed. Living with the heart in flight. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. Listen to the heart and cries. No words are needed, no words are needed. Living with the heart in flight. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. Listen to the heart that cries. No words are needed, no words are needed. Living with the heart in flight. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. You're a gold mine, you're redefined. I'm planting light in the hearts of everyone. I'm planting light in the heart of everyone. I'm planting light in the heart of everyone.
Thank you so much, Zach. Man, you're awesome. I know you know that, and we say that every time you come to visit us, but like, I'm so grateful for you being in the world at this time, being so prolific, having so much music, every single song just sung from the heart to the heart. It's masterful. It's amazing. I hope that you know how magical that is and how miraculous that is and how valued that is. And I know like artists tread the world and they share their good, and it sometimes feels just like the scent leaving the flower and you don't even feel like you can take responsibility for it. But I also know that sometimes it's really nice to be celebrated. So I celebrate you.
Oh, thank you
um,
so much.
you fathered these songs. All right, so welcome to Virtual Speakeasy. I am Maureen Muldoon, the founder and the spiritual director of Speakeasy. Our mission is as follows. Speakeasy is a diverse and progressive spiritual community sharing a message of love and engaging in conversations that inspire creative expression and spiritual well-being. We honor the Divine Mother, the Blessed Mother, and we follow the teachings of A Course in Miracles and the principles of love, and we see you as a unique expression of love capable of divine empowerment and embodiment. And here at Speakeasy, we say that truth is our passion. Like, we try and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We say that love is our religion, easy peasy, care is our currency, and peace is our goal. And we attempt to speak easily about tough and tender topics so that we can navigate life with greater wisdom and grace. And today, Todd Fink is going to be talking to us about father time, and it's Father's Day. And for many people, this is a beautiful day of celebration. And for many people, it can feel like there's a wound. We talk about the mother wound. We don't always talk about the father wound, but we do hear about daddy issues. So it's there. And if that is true for you, I know this conversation will be healing. And I hope that you contribute what you can. So we devote this service to the Divine Mother, the Divine Father, to Mary Magdalene, to Jesus, to Buddha, to all the names of God, to all the saints and enlightened teachers and their teachings, specifically A Course in Miracles. We welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. And we are a spiritual community with a global message, and we invite you to help share that message. If you received a reminder text in your phone, and you know somebody who could benefit from this conversation, who might also need a little bit of healing or inspiration or a little bit of father love, just copy and then paste it and text them the invitation. It's super easy. And just like I said with Zach, like, everybody likes to be celebrated, everybody likes to be thought of, everybody likes to be included. So even if you just think of it one person and send it out, it doesn't matter if they show up. It matters that you made that connection. So I don't mean to give you homework right away, but you feel good when you do good. So it's great to be here with you this morning. If this is your first time, welcome. If it's your second time, welcome back. And if it's your third time, I hope you consider this part of your spiritual home and your spiritual well-being. Our spiritual community is a place to connect, and we'd love to assist you in that by recognizing you by name, if you're comfortable adding your name to your Zoom profile. Here's a little summary of our time together. Vince Parker will be sharing invitations and announcements that are coming up this week, followed by either Lou Martin or someone who's standing in for Lou Martin for our prayer and meditation. And then we'll have the talk, the community offering, and then our conversation. And this conversation, we encourage you not to leave your brains or your beliefs or your backgrounds at the door. You don't have all the answers, but we love the questions. I shared a blog this week on our newsletter talking about my dad, and my dad was a great storyteller, but he never left us out of the ability to tell our stories. And he would always ask us at dinner time, like, what did you do to make the world a better place? And I shared that, like, my family, this would just set off a whole lying fest where people would just start confessing to things that never happened. But it didn't matter if they happened or not. It was that we knew that we weren't supposed to be passive. We're moving into this paradigm where passivity is a privilege, and maybe one that we should attempt to move away from so that we can actually find ourselves in engaging experiences where we are fully engaged. And I know that can be hard for a lot of us who spend a lot of time scrolling and not engaging, but this is your opportunity to do that. So now that you have a roadmap of what's going to flow from here, I'm going to go ahead and pass this to Vince for our announcements.
Thank you, Maureen. Good day. My name is Vince Parker, and I'm a grateful member of the SpeakEasy community. We are a virtual community offering daily classes and events on Zoom to support your spiritual journey through the week. Some of the highlights that we invite you to participate in are as follows. Monday through Friday, join us for Sacred Movement Yoga at 7:30 a.m. Central, a gentle yoga practice to start your day balanced in body, mind, and spirit. Tuesday, July 1st, we begin the next round of Miracles Live 365. This is a daily program where we gather live on Zoom to practice the daily lesson of A Course in Miracles with humor and compassion. If you are not able to join us live, you will have the opportunity to listen to the recording on your own time. We currently have an early bird special for newcomers and alumni of $1 a day until this Wednesday, June 18th. Don't delay. Join our tribe today. Our sacred sanctuary and tucked in with our divine groups will be on break until the week of July 13th, but check our calendar of events for other offerings through the week. All the details and ways to sign up for events can be found in our calendar in the chat on our website at SpeakEasySpiritualCommunity.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. And so in lieu of Lou, he I don't know where he's at. We're just going to know he's wherever he needs to be. But in lieu of Lou, I will pray us in. So I just invite you to take a moment to join me in tucking our chins and bowing our heads and knowing that God is so good, that God is right here and right now, and so much love and so much light and so much peace and joy. And each of us are one with it, animated by it. It has us, it holds us, it knows us, it delights in us. It's the light that dwells within each of us that cannot fail. We give thanks for this day of miraculous encounters where it's always God meeting God, meeting God, meeting God, where we're given solutions and solutions where we once saw dead ends. We commit to remembering that we are each immersed in God's holy ecstasy and audaciousness, where all things are possible, where all things are perfect, where all things are plentiful and pregnant with a greater good. We give thanks for this day, for this speaker, for this content, for this music, for this community that has gathered together to celebrate the gorgeous, gracious nature of a divine source. And so I just know that we will all be fully blessed by this content, by this conversation. So I just ask us to just take a moment to arrive here, to let go of anything that is distracting, to turn away from anything that is dividing. Just allow yourself, your soul, this time to be still and be cared for. I bless Todd from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. I bless his message. I bless the conversation. And I give thanks for the way that it ripples out into the world, doing good and creating good and greater good as it goes. And so for this, I give thanks and I let it be. Together we say, and so it is. Amen. All right. Now I would like to introduce to you Todd Fink. He needs no introduction. He's a staple in our community. He's here every third Sunday. And we're just so blessed by his extravagant, unusual, authentic, exotic way of looking at things, of getting to the underbelly of ideas and content. And so I know that this will be the truth for today's message as well. He is the host of Kind Mind podcast, and he's the co-founder of the Giving Tree Band. He's an addiction specialist, a counselor, mindfulness teacher, and motivational speaker. He is our guest speaker once a month. And he just graduated from Columbia University in New York So round of applause and celebration for that. And he continues to just leave a mark of love on the world, and I'm sure today will be the same. So please open your hearts, your minds for a great content and conversation. And welcome, Todd Fink.
Thanks so much, Maureen. Thank you, Zach. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, everyone who's contributing today and everyone who's joining us today. Happy Father's Day to my dad, to all the dads online today and all the dads out there, and to Father Sky, Father Time, the Heavenly Father, all the Father energy out there. Yeah, so my talk is, I appreciate what you were sharing about storytelling, Maureen, because this really, my reflection today is really like a story about mankind, I think. And right now, the world is aching for something that I don't even think it can name anymore. You have the noise of all the headlines where all the mainstream media tries to brainwash us and inject our feelings into us, what we're supposed to feel from above, top down. But beneath this fever pitch of all the polarization, again, I think the polarization is also largely manufactured, as you might have seen from this weekend. People of all different backgrounds coming together for something that they're starving for. Well, beneath all this, there is a hunger, not for more content, more entertainment, even though many of us are addicted to it, like you were saying, with the scrolling and the swiping and all of that, but for hungry for a pattern that is sustaining. So when you're hungry enough, you're starving. Then you're not just hungry for something specific, like when you have a taste for pizza. That taste for something special is the luxury of being well fed. So no, when you're starving, you're just hungry. And as this relates to Father's Day, this hunger is not for stronger men, but for wiser ones, not for all these displays of power, but for genuine maturity. At the root of all this confusion is the collapse, I believe, of the archetypal mature father, not just the biological role, but the deeper, older psychological function of a father as a pattern. Pattern and paternal share the same root, pater. That's its shared etymology. And this pattern means presence that holds time, integrity, and the sacred space for real human development, not just technological development. A father is so linked with time, and he lives in reverse time. While the child grows, he ages. As the future unfolds, he fades, but not in a tragic way. It's beautiful if it's done with awareness. The father, in that sense, is time incarnate. And the gift he offers is not control, but coherence. Hence the universality of deifying this mystery as Father Time. Think about the passage of time for all of us. It's like water in a filled bathtub. At first, it seems still. When you unplug it, I mean, even endless, while the drain is open the whole time. But almost imperceptibly at first, it begins to recede. And by the time we really notice, most has passed, and now it's rushing, swirling into the dark drain. So too with our life, also with our institutions, with our social conventions, and so too with civilization itself. Fatherhood is one of the most intimate vehicles through which time transmits itself bidirectionally. A father is simultaneously a product of the past and a steward of the future. Not only that, but some men experience fatherhood as a chance to repair the past, to do it differently than their own fathers did, to rewrite the script. In this sense, fatherhood becomes a form of time travel, reaching mentally backward to heal and physically forward to advance. Through him, stories, values, and the genetic codes are passed on. My own dad didn't just tell us his stories, but he could compose new ones spontaneously when we were in nature. A father's presence or absence echoes in the psyche of the kid, shaping their own sense of time. This is, to a significant degree, this influences whether time feels safe and expansive, or fractured and hurried. Becoming a father often changes a man's perception of time. Maybe the dads joining us today can share on this later. Do the days feel shorter, or the nights longer, or the years strangely fast? Time becomes measured not just with clocks and calendars anymore, but in the child's milestones, the literal and symbolic steps. And then that becomes the father's markers of his own age and growing sense of impermanence. Time also becomes a test of a man's presence in these tough and expensive times where the greediest are trying to harvest everything from us for profit, including our time and attention. Well, fathers often feel torn between providing for their children and being with their children. Almost everything a man could traditionally or stereotypically provide for his family wasn't bought with money, it was bought with time. These days, that's shifting rapidly and erratically as roles are evolving, and money and crypto and the game of investment, which is an abstraction of an abstraction in the 21st century. Still, the struggle to be present in any of these fleeting moments while managing the responsibilities that consume a man's time, that's a pretty common emotional tension in fatherhood. In fatherhood, a man confronts his own mortality. Watching a child grow is like watching his own hourglass flip and empty in reverse. The father begins to look at time as an inverted mirror. The more he sees his child become, the more he's reminded of what he once was and what he'll no longer be. But that is the path of wisdom. If any person of any gender can discipline and enjoy the body, strengthen, develop the body, and then the mind, and then the spirit, it's simply a process of shedding and finding freedom in subtler and subtler things until the sublime lightness of being abides. Father time teaches us that the sacred is never static. A father should be dynamic, and we don't see this enough in society. A father who resists change becomes a statue in his child's mind, immovable and ultimately irrelevant. But a father who ages and transforms, who breaks and resets and admits his humanness, becomes a living testament to the paradox of time, that what is fleeting can also be eternal with maturity. Father time is often misconceived as cruel, like the saying, father time comes for all. And I've been hearing this watching the NBA playoffs, and retired athlete commentators like to say this after an aging superstar player gets an injury, or when they're on the decline physically late in their pro career. But time is not cruel in our lesson today. It's circular. The son becomes the father becomes the memory becomes the myth, and the myth, if lovingly told with our stories, becomes the legend, the map's legend for the next travelers on the winding road of becoming. What are the origins of this concept of father time, though? The father is a symbol of lineage, a link in a chain that stretches both backward and forward in time. Because in our patrilineal systems, especially, One's name, inheritance, and identity are derived through the father in the family. So he becomes a kind of temporal signpost. He holds the memory of what came before and sets expectations for what comes after. The father names, and in naming situates the child within history. Naming places a child on the map of time. And time refuses to give us what we want when we want it. So does a father as the disciplinarian. You can have your allowance after the chores. The father is often a child's first encounter with law, or with the word no, with structure, with delayed gratification. Similarly, time is the great enforcer of all boundaries. You cannot speed it up, you cannot rewind it. You can only submit or surrender to it and learn to live wisely within it. If the earth is our mother, then the sky is the father. Mother Earth, Father Sky. The ancient fathers were often sky gods, bestowers of time and light, like Surya, the sun god in Hinduism, or Ra in Egyptian mythology. The sky holds the sun, which was a daily clock, the moon, which was the monthly calendar with its phases, and the stars, which were the cosmic cycles of astrology and ages. Ancient timekeeping, sundials, lunar calendars, zodiacs, all derive from looking upward. Hence, our Heavenly Father is not just a metaphor for divinity, but for temporal order itself, or celestial order, or order at the cosmic scales of justice. A tree is born from the womb of Mother Earth and grows up towards the sky. The mother is the source of being, the father often a source of becoming. In Roman mythology, Cronus becomes Saturn, a god of time, agriculture, and disillusion. Saturn is the planet of discipline and decay. It represents the long arc of reckoning, and Saturn returns astrologically around every 29 years. And this means you get maybe 3 of them if you live a long life. And this often coincides with profound life shifts and new roles, such as fatherhood. Father time invites the father to mature, the biological father to mature, not just age and grow old, to become the wise old man, the inner elder, the bearer of gravity, who guides without gripping because he's detached but still compassionate. Saturn's scythe often is misrepresented as a weapon, but it's also a harvesting tool. He cuts not to destroy or wound, but to reap. Hence, the being a presider over agriculture. The passage of fatherhood then is a Saturnian rite. First, the pride of creation. Second, the humility of release. And finally, the harvest of memory as wisdom. In Sanskrit, kala not only means time, but also death. And mahakala, maha means great, is thus great death or great time. And this is also a deity. The ultimate end of all things is what the deity represents. But unlike Western figures like Kronos in Greek mythology, Mahakala doesn't devour out of fear. He destroys to liberate. He annihilates illusions, ego, and attachment. He clears the path not to oblivion, but to truth. However, Mahakala is depicted in art and mythology as jet black, not out of malice, but because black is the color that absorbs all colors and everything. It's the color of formless potential, of the void before or beyond creation. In this, he echoes Kali, whose name also derives from Kala, the divine mother of destruction and rebirth, who's also depicted as blackness. This is so the dark mother of disillusion. This is the deeper meaning of Tantra and the wisdom of unity within this duality represented as Shiva and his divine consort Shakti in Hindu mythology. Mahakala says, in time, I will take from you everything you cling to and leave only what you are. And what greater act of divine fatherhood could there be at the cosmic scale? In our relative world, to be a father in the spirit of Mahakala is not to preserve the child's innocence forever, nor to interfere too soon, but at the right time. That's Kairos in Greek mythology, Kairos and within Chronos. The right time to begin to challenge, provoke, and awaken them. So it is to deconstruct illusions gently, then fiercely, and to model the courage to look into the void without flinching. Unlike other holidays that are about events in time, Father's Day is about presence. Father's Day also stirs up some difficulty, like was mentioned earlier. I mean, some people have lost their fathers, some never had fathers in their life, and others may have been hurt by their fathers. So I want to be sensitive to that. Maybe even in that space, then the symbol of the father remains as a personal ritual of healing, perhaps to grieve what was never received, or maybe forgiveness for first and foremost for your own sake. Or one could choose to relate to the energy of fatherhood in a new way from this notion of presence. When Lindsey Graham tweeted the other day at the as this new war emerged between Israel and Iran, he tweeted "Game on," and it's such a reflection of a child in a man's body. He's way too immature to be a leader, and so I just point that out because it stands out to me as I was looking at social media this weekend. It's not a video game boy. He never met a war he didn't like, from afar, of course. Wealth, safety, security, but the world is not, just disordered. It's disoriented, and at the heart of this disorientation is a vacuum of this true fatherhood energy. The mature father doesn't dominate, he patterns, like we were talking about. He becomes a living model of integrity under pressure. He shows what it means to carry weight without collapse, to speak truth without cruelty, to set boundaries without imposing fear. The etymology of father shares its root, as I said, with pattern. The root is pater. And this isn't accidental. The father is not just someone who provides, he's the one who patterns, patterns possibilities into the world, who teaches not through commandments, but through congruence with his own life. His presence is a rhythm, it's a container, it's its own form. And in this time of chaos, the pattern is everything. And yet we see the opposite. Leaders, like I said, who perform roles without inhabiting them. Spokespeople. We had Matt Miller saying, who was formerly spokesperson for the Biden administration, I was speaking for the administration, not for myself. Journalists like Jake Tapper with his new book, Original Sin, who now moonlights as a memoirist while claiming neutrality, and not speaking while whatever the cover up he is disclosing now, while it was happening in real time. That's none of that's integrity, and it just paves the way for the opposite problems. This is all fragmentation. This is not leadership. It's a theater. It's a circus. And in the absence of any true pattern, like I was describing, that these precursors, we turn to counterfeit strength, the rise of authoritarianism, the allure of fascism, the nostalgia for showmen or pretend strongmen. And these aren't signs of strength. They're symptoms of the father hunger I outlined earlier. A world craving real initiation, craving guidance, craving someone, anyone who seems to know the real way and can present a coherent pattern. There's no such thing as peace through strength, which we keep hearing. That's the adolescent's view of power. It says, if I'm feared, I won't be challenged. If I dominate first, I will be safe. But this kind of peace is like the silence at gunpoint. There's no peace through strength, but there is strength through peace, fortunately. True peace is not simply quiet or the pause between wars. It's the equilibrium born of fairness, inclusion, and trust. We keep hearing that our country's threatened, or this other country threatened us. These people hate us. So what? There's a huge difference between someone making threats and actually being a threat. If we scale that back into the biological father, if the child says at some point, I hate you, in a moment of emotional turbulence and conflict, is that grounds for the father to murder their child? No, of course not, because all the power is with the parent. The father can stay or leave the family, even. The child doesn't have that autonomy. The father has all the physical and economic power over the small child and owns everything historically. So we need to apply this logic to leadership. The father energy may need to withhold something as a limit, but display great restraint when it comes to violence and destruction. And make no mistake, the world's in this sense of long emergency, not just like a climate emergency or or the mental health crisis or the geopolitical crisis, but a soul crisis, a crisis of coherence, a failure of initiation. We're no longer a young species. We're entering midlife as a civilization, and with it needs to come a reckoning. This is not a call to nostalgia, it's a call to elderhood. The future, excuse me, does not need more innovation. It needs more initiation. It needs those who will pattern wholeness, who will model resilience, who will remind us through the congruence of their being that there's such a thing as strength through peace. I do not control by force, is what this energy says. I inspire by example. I do not avoid conflict, but I do not escalate it either. I have faced my fear and can now hold space for yours. And it's not just, Trump I'm talking about, or simply a matter of impeaching or enduring his tenure. Because what I was saying about what we witnessed with the impotence on, in the predecessors. So it goes way beyond that. Again, with Matt Miller recently on a podcast tour saying all that denial of a humanitarian crisis wasn't him speaking for himself. He was speaking for the administration. And Trump saying, what I said before about this bombing in the Middle East, that was me just setting the stage. So I don't believe that, but it means he was either lying then or he's lying now. So what we can infer from all this is that everything that's being said, you can't trust. And what is it? What happens then? Or Michael Madigan, our longtime Illinois speaker, just got sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. The Democratic speaker, when he's 83 years old, after 40 years of public service plus lifelong corruption. This all reflects what I'm talking about, the broader crisis of self-promotion over genuine public service. All this confirms that you can't trust your leadership because there's no integrity. That's what leadership is, integrity. So where are people to turn? And now the so-called independent influencers are also bought and by oligarchs. And so some of them are complaining about the lack of expertise, like on Joe Rogan's show, because he has a responsibility with such a massive audience to curate the guests more carefully. This is a contradiction of terms, though. If he did that, the show wouldn't be popular, and it would ensure another person would fill that same void, supply and demand. So that's a misdiagnosis. The answer isn't changing the comedians. I mean, that all these people are turning to comedians, which whatever their political affiliations were, whether it's Jon Stewart or Dave Chappelle or Joe Rogan or Bill Burr or Bill Maher or Tim Dillon and others. I mean, doesn't that imply that the joke's on us? So all that's a misdiagnosis. The disease is the long dishonesty of the legacy media and leadership, ignoring the will of the people and espousing war propaganda. The symptom is the conspiracy alt media, with the people forced to turn to comedians for the closest thing to an authentic take. And of course, the cure is the maturity of trust through transparency and deep dialogue and integrity. But our society medicates pain, it distracts us from it, or it monetizes it, right? And this time in politics, there are no adults in the room, no elders watching the fire. So again, the rise of conspiracy theories, messianic politics, and yearning for machismo, it's a psychic hunger for a real collective father. But in the absence of the mature father energy, the void is filled by demagogues and this AI generated fantasy. Otherwise, I mean, who among our leaders is actually initiating us into wisdom? Who among them has passed through the fires of ego death and returned bearing insight? I was discussing with my brother the other day about the psychology of risk in manhood and manifestation and abundance, and how it's trained in childhood somewhat. Then I was thinking of what really helped us spread our wings and fly that we got from our dad and our mom. But for this, what is needed from the father to support a boy's flight? In infancy and early childhood, the mother is often the regulator of the internal world, providing attunement, comfort, and mirroring. My mom was constantly with us, constantly with me then, and totally present and connected and reassuring as someone could be, which was incredible and an extraordinary sacrifice, especially these days in families, especially in the difficult economic situation. The father, in many traditional and psychological formulations, functions as a regulator of the external world. He's the one who names, defines, limits, and protects the child from that which is too large out there, too chaotic, too dangerous. And since my dad was in the Navy sailing across the Pacific Ocean when I was an infant, or early in my childhood, he would come back from Japan, from Hong Kong, from Vietnam, from the Philippines, from these very diverse and far off lands. So yeah, I saw him as containing a mental map of what was out there. The archetype of a mature father is consistent, present, and calm. He teaches the child how to relate to fear without being consumed by it. So the child's nervous system internalizes the father's response patterns, which says, there is danger, but it can be faced. I'm not alone. I don't need to panic. My brother and I had almost no crippling fears of the external world while at home, because our dad is physically and mentally stronger than almost anyone we ever met. So, but especially because he was resourceful and knows how to survive in any situation, whether that means to fight or to build or to fix something. So this forms the bedrock of secure risk taking, healthy separation not fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, people pleasing, and the ability to move confidently into new or unknown environments. In research, this bears out. These are the hallmarks of later creativity, leadership, and resilience. In mythology, the father often stands at the threshold, sometimes literally, like as a king or protector at the gate, or symbolically as the embodiment of law, order, and cosmic structure. And to pass into the world, the hero in the hero's journey of like Joseph Campbell's theory must either confront, integrate, or be blessed by this father figure. When the father is mature, he functions as the guardian of fear, not its source. If the father is the cause of all fear in the child, it's traumatizing. He's supposed to keep the wolves at bay, so to speak. He holds the perimeter so the child's inner world can flourish with the love and kindness of the mother and the training of the mother. So he's not the initiator of trauma, but the buffer against it. Conversely, when the father is absent or unstable or abusive, he does become a source of existential confusion. The child has no internalized map of what is safe or who they are in the face of adversity. They become either paralyzed by fear and risk averse in adulthood, or compulsively self-reliant, traits that they then project onto their partners or others as adult responsibility. But it's often just trauma adaptations. The mature father says, in effect, the world is vast, but you're not alone. There is danger, but it doesn't define you. You are protected, but you will also be prepared. And this fosters sovereignty, not dependency, a sense that one can stand in the unknown with courage because there was once someone who held them through it. Now, scale this out to the level of society without a mature father or without mature father energy. It's spiritually fragile. Without the deep experience of safety and uncertainty, we seek it artificially through bureaucracy, hyper control, overcorrection, ideological rigidity. The institutions themselves are full of fear. They seem to value conformity over courage, surveillance over trust. And again, a true leader becomes the steady edge at the perimeter of the unknown, like the mature father archetype. So he gives people the gift to move beyond safety into purpose, creativity, and freedom. Look around, at all the brutality of people with weapons against people unarmed. Look around at our fellow human beings. Are they safe? Are they free? Are they free enough to exude the exuberance of life and express all their individuality? And are people channeling all their gifts to the world because they're so safe and free? I know I'm taking a long time, but I think we ended early a few other times. So if you could permit me one final reflection, which is that the opposite of true masculinity is not cowardice, but technology. The philosopher Nassim Taleb said something to this effect, and it was very provocative in his book of aphorisms called The Bed of Procrustes. I've read about so many legendary warriors in my lifetime. I mean, from Miyamoto Musashi, the sword saint of Japan, and his books, they're The Five Rings and the Dokudo, or The Way of Aloneness, to more recent Japanese legend Morihei Ueshiba, who founded Aikido, whose message was nonviolence. And his beautiful book, The Art of Peace, explains that meaning of Aikido. To the Wandering Taoist, to biographical accounts of Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse and Black Elk. And Black Elk Speaks is the book of the Lakota warrior medicine man about the tragedy and the battles of the Lakota people. In most traditional warrior cultures, I've learned, from the knights of medieval chivalry to the samurai of feudal Japan to the Lakota warriors and other indigenous nations of North America, there were codes that were not merely tactical, but spiritual. They named not only what a man could do, but what he must never do, even in combat, even under threat, even when his life or other lives were on the line. For example, a warrior, they taught, doesn't attack a sleeping person. doesn't strike or kill a child, doesn't challenge an elderly person to a duel, and doesn't even raise his weapon against the elderly or the unarmed or the helpless. Why? Because none of these are any feats of strength. They don't test courage, they don't bring honor. The warrior in those traditions was not just measured by victory, but by the restraint he chose in the face of power. This is the X factor, what men do with power. And these codes were also because of memento mori, which means we're all going to die. So when men do these disgraceful or greedy or selfish acts as if they could live forever, it's a delusion and a violation of nature and humanity. So not only measured by conquest, but by how deeply he remained accountable to something greater than himself, something greater than his survival, something like the Great Spirit or Mother Nature or nobility or some sacred order of the universe. But modern warfare is not like that. It's not built on the test of a man's discipline or presence. It's built on technology. And that technology has made killing anonymous, distant, silent, uninitiated. Today, a man can fly high above a village and drop death on strangers without ever seeing any of their faces. He can end a lineage with a joystick. He can obliterate a family, a school, a hospital without ever feeling a breath of danger in himself. Is that sacred warriorhood? This is mechanized insecurity masquerading as masculine prowess. And that perhaps is what Taleb meant when he wrote the opposite of masculinity is technology. This is why so many veterans I've worked with over the past 25 years in therapy don't want to be called a hero because they feel something hollow about a lot of that. My Vietnam veteran uncle, his autobiography is titled Never a Hero. I highly recommend it. We're told that military makes men, that combat for country is a rite of passage into manhood. That's how it's often framed. But too often, today's soldiers are disillusioned by trauma. They return not with wisdom, but with many psychological wounds, with honor, but with horror. Killing children, burying neighbors under rubble, watching human life disappear into smoke and debris. This doesn't mature men, it fractures them. It often isolates him from his own soul because, in the vast evolution of man, he never needed to be convinced of danger. You understood it implicitly. Someone's stealing from you, someone's trying to kill you, you must defend your loved ones. But convincing is the modern way of the soldier and the people. It's called propaganda. Could this be partly why suicide rates among veterans are so high? Is this why PTSD, addiction, and moral injury are epidemics in those who serve? And it ripples out when a society places more faith in drones than diplomacy and technology. That technological supremacy is not proof of moral superiority. This all creates a world where men feel strong on the outside and lost on the inside. And it applies to all technology, food, highly processed, mass produced by slave labor and machines. And it's ruining the health and the spirit of people when there are countless barriers, especially economically, for the marginalized, for men and young men to learn how to hunt and gather and grow and farm and steward wild spaces organically. And what does that do to their development? Now that we know warriorhood is all automated, this dissonance behaves like an emotional autoimmune disorder. We're getting autoimmune disorders from the food and from the technology there. Just as a child, unable to defend themselves against an abusive parent, they may turn that unspent rage inward as self-harm or shame. Both the soldier and the civilian internalize the contradiction between what we're told and what we know, what they say and what they do. Have you ever considered that depression could be anger turned inward? Let me be clear, though, that this is not any kind of condemnation of those who serve. I deeply respect and appreciate our service members and their motivations, whether it's patriotism or education or the advancement of our society. I'm proud of my dad. I'm proud of my uncles and my family and my friends. This is a grief-stricken recognition and critique of the machine and the lucrative business of industrial scale violence and the deviation of the system from its mission and its disservice to create men of substance. And because the ancient codes of our ancient elders lie buried, the codes of restraint, responsibility, and presence in the fire. Until we restore this understanding, until we raise sons to be guardians instead of enforcers, to embody maturity instead of just professing it, like Walt Whitman said, if you done it, it ain't bragging. All these rich warhawks that sit safe and comfortable, who never sniffed a battleground and whose families will never be in harm's way. There's always an extreme disparity between rich and poor in war. Complete cowardice and immaturity in the leadership like that. We can't mistake technology for masculinity and trauma for initiation. Otherwise, our world in turn will only grow more dangerous and more unequal, not only because men are too violent, but because too few of them have ever truly become men. Thank you. Look forward to talking with our fathers and talking with all of you in the conversation.
Thank you, Todd. Beautiful. We have a lot to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and pass this to Vince.
Now, SpeakEasy is a non-for-profit virtual spiritual community, and we exist on the generosity of our community members. We thank you for playing your part and for taking the opportunity to make a donation for today's daily bread. Your generous donations help us bring spiritual leaders, artists, and speakers to Sunday service and keep important conversations going. As you were spiritually fed by today's conversation, I invite you to go within and see what is yours to share. No gift is too small. The donation link is in the chat, as well as on our website, SpeakEasySpiritualCommunity.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all who support these conversations. Where do we start? We covered a lot of ground. And one thought that came up for me, please put your hands up if you want to share. I guess I should do this preamble that is important to our conversation. Now it's time for our unique experience at SpeakEasy Sunday service, our community conversation. This is where we invite you to speak easily, find your voice, your truth, and share your thoughts, inspirations, awareness, and your questions. Just by putting up your virtual hand, which is located in the reaction tab at the bottom of your screen. Please also note to leave your video on in doing so, because we want to be able to see you, and we'll also put you up to highlight you with our speaker. So, you took us around the block and up the street and around the corner, and there's so much territory. But the one that I wanted to land on was, first of all, I've been in this community for a long time, and I have gotten to hear about other people's fathers. Hearing about your father has always been intriguing and interesting to me. These men, and Bella Gordon's dad, and Liliana's dad, and Jody Murphy's father, who taught her how to gather the squirrels that he shot for dinner. You know what I mean? Like these interesting things that our fathers teach us. But then as you rounded the corner with this, concept of fatherhood and maturity, I do know for the most part as a mother, motherhood has matured me. I didn't just watch my children mature, but it matured me. Fatherhood, as you said, doesn't leave you a statue, but leaves you in process in the patterns of your own evolution and maturity. And it's not a title that you lose after your tasks are done. You stay in this role of father or mother to, after I stopped raising my kids, I started raising this community, and we use the same sort of techniques and tools. And I couldn't help but think about Julia Howe, who was the inspiration for Mother's Day, which ends up being this like cartoonish Hallmark brunch event, when really it was a call to peace. And I'm thinking, if we can't find any good leaders that are masculine, maybe they should stop leading and start following. Thoughts?
Yeah, 100%, and I was kind of sharing this with my mom yesterday that that's what we need. But what will likely happen is, um, more and more women will be incentivized to adopt the worst traits of toxic masculinity. I was saying, how 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 can a female CEO of a weapons manufacturer deviate from the motivations of war? You know what I mean? So it really comes back to what you're saying, which is in the energy. That's why, like Bell Hooks said, patriarchy has no gender.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't think it's about, like you said, I don't think it's about masculine or femininity. I think it's about the paradigm of leadership, that we have this triangle of, there's a guy at the top and you get what you get and you don't get upset and it trickles down and we all follow and are infused and impressed by this one focus, where the paradigm of the circle, whether those members that lead through group consciousness are men or women, it's the paradigm. It's the actual paradigm. And even when you talk about these jokers, comedians that are, receptacles of truth, there's still truth, there's still sponsored truth. It's not actually truth if it's sponsored. So I don't think we can and shouldn't. I mean, first of all, I believe, as I know you believe, that our men at this time, because they've been so held in the position of leadership and therefore responsible for this broken paradigm, are a call for love. Are just a call for love. Like, I think our guys just need our veterans, our fathers, our brothers, our sons. I just think that we have really put them at a disadvantage in this paradigm of leadership. And I don't think it's actually natural or normal.
Yeah, you're right on to call out the paradigm, because in an unhealthy paradigm with perverse incentives, uh, token representation will never be, will never translate to fairness, inclusivity, and and real opportunity, and the removal of barriers to progress and fortune.
Right. And as one implodes, we do see this grassroots group consciousness. I mean, we have one guy who's crazy, but drawing so much attention on this one day. And then we have hundreds and thousands of people who are a part of the group consciousness. And this is the scale: one man to hundreds and thousands of people. And I think the group consciousness will eventually win out. It's going to look terrifying as we transition, but I don't think there's any other way.
I think so, and that's why I began with the reflection on hunger. When enough people are hungry enough, then it makes you more courageous, and it makes you more resourceful and interdependent, as you're
Interdependent.
pointing out.
Absolutely. And, in interdependency, less people go hungry. And in interdependency, we get to eradicate greed, because we get to see, like, okay, mine is yours and yours is mine. So how do we actually, at this time, we have people living in the streets and we have people with 5 or 6 houses. That's so far from interdependency. It's just absolutely, like sponsored truth is greed. It's just more greed.
I agree, and there's definitely a sea change. So everything I'm sharing is with the with the energy of hope and faith, because I think you're right. I think consciousness is rising, and the critical mass are waking up. They're getting engaged with life and community and this grassroots energy, and that's the long arc of reckoning. It's hard to see some of these shifts in the short term, but the seeds are sprouting. So there's my talk, today, or my reflection is, about just encouraging the momentum to keep building.
Yeah. And I think keep having sort of things that support unity, equality. I mean, I think about the things that are working. Like I think about the program of the 12 steps. It's incredible. You know what I mean? Like it really is sort of a group consciousness that's a movement where everybody owns their seat. In my head right now, I'm hearing my father saying, "You communist bastard," but but there's something to it where like each person owns the responsibility of their seat. Each person throws in a couple of bucks. The roof is covered by that. The special service people are paid through that, and there are no leaders.
It's a
Can you
beautiful model,
There's
right?
no leaders. Can you
It's
imagine that?
non-hierarchical. Sponsors don't take more, they give more.
Right,
There's no head of AA. There's no director or king or CEO of AA.
right,
It's community based, and nobody's hoarding all the resources.
right.
And
And
there's
so,
also no expectation that, and
yeah,
there's no scorecard where, like, I set up the room twice. Now I'm not doing anything anymore. It's all about stewardship.
yeah, it really
You
is.
know?
So we have a
Yeah.
model that demonstrates it. And when I said maybe men shouldn't lead, maybe no one should lead, you know? Like maybe we have an example of what it looks like when we have no leader, but absolute group consciousness, individual responsibility. That'll mature you, but most people don't get into those rooms until they have died several deaths.
This is coded in a lot of mythological stories. The the warriors of ancient tribes sitting around the fire, uh, King Arthur and his knights of the round table. There is no head
Right,
of the table.
right.
So the circle, or the circle in Taoism, or the council,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
leading through council and consensus,
yeah,
not through rule and oppression and imposed authority, top
yeah.
down.
And it can trickle down into, we have an organization, but then you could bring those concepts into your home as well. When you and I first started talking, we talked about our fathers. And the thing we talked about our fathers were they told us stories. And that's the same exact thing that happens in the 12-step community. Nobody shares medicine. Nobody opens up really. I mean, there's a 12-step book, but there's no like philosophy or mythology. There's simply my experience, strength, and hope, my individual experience, strength, and hope. I just find that extravagantly audacious because personally, my life has been saved by my father's stories, by my dad's stories. My life has been transformed by my dad's stories. I I wonder how you can foster more of that in the world. Stories
Well, it's
from
a real tragedy that knowledge has been reduced to needing millions of dollars for a select few to conduct clinical trials. And it deems stories, dreams, prophecy, oral traditions as all folklore. And we've definitely thrown the baby out with the bathwater there. But that's because, there are people who can profit off the
right.
discounting of all of that sacred knowledge and all the alternative modes of constructing or acquiring knowledge. When the construction of knowledge is in the hands of few, then a lot of this plays out the way it has.
Yeah, but like again, another example of how that paradigm is not working. And it feels like if we're going to get on to the next chapter of humanity, this the paradigm that has to be absolutely undone, and we're watching it become undone. It's not working. So um
It's not
just
working, right? And But I get the feeling that people are fed up,
Mm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And
and
you,
it's rising in the priority chain where it's like, and like what I'm saying now used to be what the artist would say, the poet, the philosopher, but where are all they? The machine pushes them out so that it's just like, half-dressed teenagers and stuff whose message is totally controlled by the banks and the labels and so on. And I think the same would probably be true with the other dimensions of the entertainment industry. Yeah, to numb all that. But I mean, if you look back to the 60s, a big part of it was the music, the energy, the art, the expression. It's like, we can't have this happen again. Anyway.
yeah, the again, I think that paradigm that is very controlling of the triangle of you get what you get and you don't get upset also has a way of eradicating the messiness of humanity, the earthiness, the actual nature of the father, of the mother, of the earth, of the rhythm, of the music, of the pattern, of these things that you spoke of. Like, it wants to sanitize all of that and just be pointed straight towards profit. And so I think the more we get back to our individual rhythms, like what's actually true for me, to take a step away from all that scrolling and swiping and really get with ourselves, as you absolutely teach in all of your circles. I think it's gonna take that. And in taking that in the individual, I'll begin to connect with other people who actually value that, like we connect here.
We don't
And
even realize that the scrolling is coping.
yeah.
The binging is coping.
Mm.
We think that we are demanding these products. The products are being introduced as self-medication. That's why people are addicted to technology, and it destroys the will uh, to mature.
Mm. That's so true, man. That's so true. And the whole
Hence,
bit,
the opposite of masculinity is technology. Not that technology is bad
yeah,
in and of itself. It's just that it reaches this critical threshold where it's
yeah.
no longer to assist in the human development. It actually is blocking the human development.
Oh, we are no match for technology. I mean, it has us by the, we are no match for it. I mean, I think Jordan Peterson talks about, and I definitely see you up there, just Steve, we'll get to you right away. Jordan Peterson talks about like the evolution of, the like masculine mind. I think it is where he talks like going along, humming along, going along, being able to figure things out, and having wars and having, romances and all of these things. But then technology enters, and like the male brain with the scrolling, with the amount of stimuli, with the access to everything, forget about it. It's just really hard. We're no match for it. Let's just say that. We haven't had the protocol, or as you said, the code. We don't have a code of honor around any of that. It's like the Wild West. And our, our kids, our men, we can't handle it. So I feel like we're opening up a can of worms and we don't have any
But yeah,
solutions.
I think that's a good word to remember, the codes of honor, especially because we're all going to die. So if we could live forever, yeah, maybe the moral calculus would look a little different.
Well, I guess one thing with that as a solution is for each of us to spend some time this week to think about, what is your code? Is it okay for you to just waste time scrolling and swiping? Is this helping your actual goal? Is this assisting you where you came? If not, can you put a timer on? Can you assist yourself in living in reality as opposed to, illusion? Can you assist yourself in staying in your shoes as opposed to being swept off and just part of the mass conscious agreement to go unconscious? I think that, I think that might. Do you have your code? Do you have your codes in order, Todd Fink?
I'm not sure if I should speak or not. I've been here. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm
Fine,
enjoying all of
fine.
this, but I didn't know if you saw me. So thank you both, actually. This is quite timely. It didn't even occur to me yesterday. I'm in California, I'm in Los Angeles, and this has been I'm sorry, but a fucking crazy time here to think about manhood and dictatorship versus leadership, and technology, versus touch and feel. And it's very hard. And I had some guilt around today not being with my own father, who I am going to see next week. And some of the things you said, Todd, about especially like that you were led by your father to not have fear, that, he was this fearless man. And I thought about what about my dad? And my dad was fearless, like in a car. He felt like he was in a bubble and drove crazy. So he had fearlessness like that. But he worried and feared everything in a way. I'm so worried about blah, 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 like fill in the blank. And so how to learn as from my father, and honor my father, even though he did not fit these things that you described as fatherhood, he still did it, and he did the best he could with his tools. And I guess if there's a question in here, it's, how to still recognize the men who are really showing up in the way, like in the 12-step way. And I'm so glad you brought up 12 steps, because the ability to not comment, not judge my brother or my sister, that is ingrained in that program, it would be wonderful if we could all live this way. And when we see, and then the joy actually that I felt by marching yesterday and seeing all the true brotherhood of man trying to sort of fight against this. I'm not sure what my question is in there, but I do like your idea of being aware of what we're doing with our time, with technology and other things, and to not fear so much. What do you say about that?
Well, a lot of people are totally terrified of nature. I mean, I think a lot of people don't even touch the earth anymore, like with their actual feet. They're scared of everything, and it's unfortunate, because a lot of traditional languages or ancient languages didn't even have a word for nature, because it's like a Western concept that it is something outside of us that we could conquer and conquest. So like listening to what you're saying, it's like, it's not that like nothing could be intimidating or something, or in nature. So like, for example, like my dad would like really prioritized time in nature, making things in nature, and part of facing your fears is understanding how things work. Right. So it's like when I start to understand these are what the animals do, these are what their needs are, these are their cycles, this is how we live in harmony with them, you respect them and you're less afraid of them, because you understand your place in the ecology. So that's it. It's like, yes, when you don't understand it, we're constantly encroaching on the safety of others through our technologies. And then that reinforces the idea that the natural world is a threat, and it just needs to be conquered and subdued and destroyed. But now we see that we're destroying ourselves because we were never separate from nature.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, that's a good.
Happy Father's Day. Thank you for the reflection, Justine. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I got bears running around up here like you can't believe. And people say, oh my God, I'm so afraid of coming up there with the bears. I go, you live in a city and you're afraid of bears. Come on. Jerome is up. Hello.
Hey, thank you so much for the talk, Todd. So many things coming up. Firstly, with respect to technology, Daniel Laporte and Jeff Kranos, I think is how you say his name, just did a really cool podcast about AI. and about Danielle did a Substack about, can AI be your life coach? And so they really sort of unpacked how AI is affecting our world. So it's worth a listen. But that's a
I'd
whole
love to
other
check it
side.
out. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jerome.
check it out. Yeah.
Can you put it in the
But
chat too, so I can
yeah,
copy
I
that
don't,
and save
I'll
that?
just put her name in the chat and you can Google it and find it
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
But what strikes me is, this whole notion, you're talking about like the need for this major paradigm shift, and and really championing our individuality and how we all can contribute to the collective. And what strikes me is, seeing the protest yesterday, and just even my own sense of these things, is it seems like a critical mass in this country have already realized, even people in power, the GOP, people in the GOP have realized that our current leader is kind of batshit crazy. But they're so afraid to speak up. Like nobody, it's like, and what occurs to me is these institutions that we have created, the bureaucracy, the government, the hierarchy of the church, all of the things have become more powerful than our connection to source and to our own inner awareness, that we do service to them instead of to one another. And that's what's freaking me the hell out these days, is like we're on this slippery slope and we all see it, but all of these things seem so much bigger than we are. And it's just so disheartening to realize, like, I know that my thought processes aren't that unique. I have conversations with people who feel the same way I do. It's in the air, you feel it, but we feel so powerless. And I think that's what's frightening to me, is that we don't realize just how powerful we are.
Yeah.
And so we don't do anything about it. And why? Like, why don't the people, the Republicans in office, why doesn't the Supreme Court, like all these things we've created with the power, why don't they step up? There's such fear around doing that. And that is going to be what kills us all, is our powerlessness, which is so not the truth of who we are. Anyway, so that's my thought, such
You
as it
bring up
is.
some powerful reflections. I'll just say real quickly that, the protest is mostly in the mind. And when that shift in attitude translates to people making very conscious choices, it's one thing to even say it, or, or vote one way. But what happens when all the people totally refine their way of living and are conscious about everything they do and what they give their energy and attention to, and how interdependent they want to be. So we have to really deplete the social energy behind some of the machinations of this paradigm. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Before we bring Alex up, there is a question from Mary. Thank you, Todd, for sharing both the psychological and historical, mythical, and grammatical parts about father. Can you please say more about your own father and his absence, question mark? And she went on to talk about her mom, whose father was not there because he was a band member. So is there a difference between feeling protected because he's out there versus abandoned because he's not there? So he's out there gathering and, collecting for the family, or not there because he's absent.
Oh yeah, that's all I meant, is that, like, my mom was at home. We were fortunate to be able to make that work, and they worked really hard to raise us out of, one economic situation into a better one, into a better one, into a better one. It just kept growing. Yeah, I just meant, whether my dad had to go travel to another country for the Navy, or whether he had to take some time at the second job. Yeah, he wasn't absent. He was engaging with the environment on behalf of the family. So yeah, that's what I meant. But there is a profound impact of a father who's either absent because of abandonment or absent because of neglect. And sometimes mental illness or dysfunction in the father limits how engaged a father could be. Like if there's alcoholism, or other types of disorders, the parent may be, either parent may be emotionally unavailable, and that can be a really deep wound when you feel like you can't get emotional presence and support and nurturing when you're afraid or dysregulated as a child.
Right. I'd I'd like a follow-up question, if that's okay. My brother recently died, and he has a son. And I'm thinking back to our father, my brother's father, and my godson's grandpa. And all of these relationships are different with each of us. So I was really surprised to hear some of my brother's stories about my father, because I loved my dad. I thought my dad was the best dad ever. And both of my brothers are like, what? I mean, did we grow up in the same family? So, can you say any more about that? I'm sure it has to do with individuals as well as genders, and
Yeah.
maybe some of your own personal experience as far as what your brother's views of your father.
Absolutely. My brother and I have totally different views. I wouldn't say totally different views, but many different views about the impact of different parenting. Even though we have similar DNA, let's say, or similar environment, the research shows that there is such a wide variation in the actual upbringing. Like, for example, there's always a difference between the parenting of a first child and a second child. The parents are different. They're
Mm,
older. It may be in the best interest to share the clothes of the older sibling to the younger sibling. It's an economically wise decision, but for the concrete stage of development for the child, it's, I'm not worthy of
mm,
new stuff, of investment. I get what's left over. That could be a type of internalization. So that's just a few examples. When a parent is neglectful or absent or abusive, then an adult is sometimes trying to heal from that, as
mm,
seeing any routine separation as a potential abandonment. It leads to codependence or very firm boundaries. All this can be healed. It's just that it needs to be deconstructed, as you're saying. Oh, okay, that's what that meant, and that's how it affected me, and this is why I have some risk aversion here, or why I tend to people please, or why I avoid conflict. Maybe I didn't have that grounded safety from which I could take my steps and explore and safely fail, knowing that I have a really good net underneath me to fall into. So there's a few examples like that. Yeah.
thank you.
Beautiful question.
Alex has
Thank
a
you.
question too. Thank you so much. It was beautiful talk. I'll be sharing it.
Appreciate that. Good to see you today.
All right. Well, I thought the quote was so interesting about the opposite of masculinity is technology. And it reminded me of this shaman. He was talking about how technology, he was saying all these people were really mad about the planes. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons to be mad about the pollution and everything. But he was saying everything is still technology. I mean, everything is still nature because you can never get away from nature. Like we just created these things, but it's still of the earth. And I'm kind of holding that as a question as well, because if you can't get rid of plastic, okay, it's nature, but it's destroying the original nature. So I'm curious what you think about that.
I think that's, it's a brilliant, deep philosophical reflection. I think on very large scales, yeah, I think that's true. And like the earth will work it all out in time. That being said, I think like what we're seeing with the technology becoming the means to destroy life very rapidly, very extensively, like weapons of mass destruction, you will see in the reaction to that the rise in popularity of like mixed martial arts, and MMA is becoming almost the most popular sport in the world. Why? Because the weapons of mass destruction and um, the nuclear proliferation is a violation of masculinity. It means no matter how much you discipline your body, how mature you try to become to defend your family, it means it's absolutely meaningless in the face of technology. And so that I think gets internalized as either fantasy or escape into technology or pornography for young men, and just getting subsumed into virtual reality. So like in the short term, I think these are some of the like psychic dissonance that we would, benefit from having like guidance through it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a really good reflection and interesting question.
Really great conversation. And thank you so much, Todd, for stirring the pot with us once again. Brought up a lot of really interesting things. And we've
Yeah, I'm glad Alex brought that quote back up, because I just think it's very provocative. It's something to just keep, like, for all of us to keep engaging with. Sorry to interrupt you, Maureen, but yeah.
No, exactly. In fact, several people asked for that quote again, so I'm glad that she brought it up again too. And it's sort of it's really provocative to think that. So thank you for helping us to look beneath it and to see what's actually there, because when we talk about it, it helps. It's like, oh, I'm not alone in my fears and my insanities and what I'm seeing in the world. I'm not alone. And these conversations help me to place it somewhere and to sort of pull it apart a bit. And I find it absolutely helpful. And you've given Father's Day taken us to the deep
Happy
end.
Father's Day, yeah.
So we have Zach, who's here to close us out with a song of prayer, and a song that will surely be a prayer. And in the meantime, you can follow and find more about Todd Fink in the links in the chat. Kind Mind Podcast is a must. I like to call it like ear candy, soul food combined. So if you liked today, you'll have a lot of content there to enjoy. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers. And again, Todd, thank you so much. And happy Father's Day to your dad. Was your dad here today?
I think so.
I am here.
Oh,
Hi, Dad. Happy Father's Day.
Hi, Todd.
Thanks
you.
for joining us and letting me share some of our stories.
Yeah, I've been on every time. So yes, that's
I
great.
appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Todd, for Mr. Todd, Mr. Fink, for raising such fine men. And that's
It is my honor and privilege. It's a joy.
And again, like he shared with
Thanks.
us so many stories about you that we just have another great example of what a holy, healthy father looks like. And even if some of us didn't have that, at least hearing stories can substitute for how to father ourselves. Like Todd, my dad was a great guy too, definitely a storyteller. So we got lucky. We got lucky. So
Thank
here we have Zach. We'll bring Zach up and we'll have our final song.
This is a song that I wrote right after my dad passed. Open up your blue eyes, let your love out. Open up your blue skies, let your sun out. So I can feel you like raindrops falling, falling on my heart. You can guide my way home. You can guide my way home. My way home.
Bravo, bravissimo. God bless. What was your dad's name?
Chuck.
Chuck. Oh, he's with us today.
Definitely.
And you are a legacy for him.
Definitely.
Awesome. We love our dads. Well, and you can find more from Zach Friedhoff on the links in the chat. Be sure to follow him. You're on Spotify, right, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So you can get some music on Spotify. You can share it with your friends. You can download, you can buy, you can support and check him out. And the same for Todd. He put an extra link in about a compilation of talks that he has, archives of these discussions and other talks on his Patreon page. A great way to support him again. So thank you so much for this rich conversation and this time together. Have a beautiful week. And my call to action for myself, maybe you want to join it, is to figure out clearly what your codes are, what your code of ethic is. Nobody's going to give it to you. If you don't already have it, maybe you have it unconsciously, but sit down with a little pen, ask your higher power, like, what is it that I stand for? What is it I won't stand for? God bless. Have a beautiful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Jack. Have a great adventure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye,
Yeah.
Todd.
Good to see you all.